So to the White House now, where we just heard from Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. She also took some questions from reporters. Let's listen in to what she had to say.
With the White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, I shouldn't admit all this. There's a part of me.
We do have Karoline Leavitt speaking right outside of the White House. Let's listen in.
That Donald Trump was waiting until...
Karoline Leavitt has changed the way she looks this week. I think that's probably the best way to put it.
Let's talk about someone who's managed to flip the script on American politics, and not just with words or policies. Karoline Leavitt is 27 years old. She's sharp, polished, and powerful, and somehow she's living the kind of life most of us only ever see on TV. But beyond the press briefings and the headlines, there's a bigger story, one that blends real estate, fashion, power moves, secret romance, and deep political controversy. Because Karoline Leavitt isn't just a White House press secretary, the power home in Washington, D.C. Most people know Karoline as the youngest press secretary in White House history. But what they don't see is where she goes home at night, a breathtaking colonial craftsman mansion in the heart of Washington, D.C. The house alone is worth more than $10 million, not just because of its classic architecture or high-end finishings, but because it feels like something out of a political fantasy. Walk up to the house and you're greeted by manicured gardens, wide stone steps, and Dutch-style wooden doors. It doesn't scream wealth, it quietly declares it. Inside, every room is designed with precision. Oversized windows fill the home with natural light. The kitchen, that's a centerpiece. Sleek, polished terrazzo stone countertops, high-end stainless steel appliances, and not one but two separate pantries. It's the kind of space that works just as well for late-night dinner parties as it does for high-stakes political meetings. Upstairs, Karoline's primary bedroom has soaring ceilings, a California-style walk-in closet, and a luxury spa bath that looks more like it belongs in a five-star resort than a house. And just next door, her private office, a vintage fireplace, a personal balcony that overlooks the garden, and a quiet space where strategy, power, and privacy intersect. It's not just a home. It's a fortress for the new conservative elite, the hidden estate in New Hampshire. But that's not the only property tied to Karoline's name. Back in Hampton, New Hampshire, where her political journey really began, she owns another home, one that played a key role in her 2022 congressional campaign. It's a historic property, sitting on over 2 acres of prime land. For locals, it's a familiar landmark. For Karoline, it was home base during her rise into national politics. The house is quieter than her DC mansion, but no less significant. It's a symbol of her New England roots. It's where she planned, hosted, and launched herself into the national spotlight. And while it may not be valued in the tens of millions, owning property in one of the most sought-after parts of New Hampshire still says one thing loud and clear: she's not leaving her political foundation behind. Love, secrets, and a sudden wedding. But if you thought Karoline's political and financial story was compelling, her personal life might be even more surprising. On Christmas Day 2023, she posted a photo on Instagram that sent shockwaves through social media. Not a speech, not a policy update, an engagement announcement. The caption read, "The man of my dreams." And the man, Nicholas Riccio, a real estate mogul, 32 years older than her. Nobody saw it coming, and that was just the beginning. Because just when people started digging into who Nicholas was, Karoline vanished from the spotlight. The wedding happened in total secrecy. Only a small circle of close friends knew where it took place. A candlelit ceremony, deeply private, and from the outside, it looked like something far more calculated than romantic. Then, less than 7 months later, in July 2024, Karoline gave birth to her first son. But there was no long maternity leave. Just 3 days after giving birth, Karoline made national headlines again, this time for returning to the podium in the wake of a national crisis. On July 13th, just days after her delivery, President Donald Trump survived an attempted assassination. It shook the nation. And Karoline? She canceled her leave, suited up, and stepped in front of the cameras once again.
Everybody. Hello. Hey. Good to see all of you. Good to see
to you.
There's a lot of press out here, so it would be rude of me not to stop and take a few questions. I just want to say happy Monday. The weather is beautiful. We have another very busy week here at the White House, as you know. The Chancellor of Germany will be here later this week on Thursday for a visit with the President. The President will also be holding a roundtable with law enforcement later this week as well. Today he is packed with meetings and calls on all of the challenges our country faces, but there's a lot of good news on the economic front as well. You see the inflation report. Inflation is down. We saw a report this morning showing that income.
Some people called it strength. Others said it was all for show. But either way, it sent a message. Karoline Leavitt doesn't break. Not for pressure, not for tragedy, not even for motherhood. Policies that shook the nation. While her lifestyle grabs attention, it's her policies that draw fire. In February 2025, Karoline announced a bold and deeply controversial move. She ordered a full freeze on all federal grants and loans, citing the need to review compliance with diversity, equity, and inclusion standards. The result? Hundreds of institutions, universities, healthcare programs, and nonprofits were instantly paralyzed. Then came another headline move. Karoline declared that, under federal guidelines, gender would now be defined strictly by biological sex at birth. That single policy effectively removed federal recognition for transgender and non-binary individuals. LGBTQ+ protections were gutted almost overnight. Karoline called it a return to sanity. Critics called it a devastating rollback of basic rights. And then, just as the backlash hit a peak, another storm arrived. She denied any involvement in Project 2025, a conservative plan to restructure the federal government from the ground up. But leaked documents told a different story. Her name appeared in notes from private strategy meetings. The message was clear. Karoline Leavitt isn't here to play it safe. She walks straight into political fire and makes herself the center of every storm. The debt no one talks about. But for all her bold moves, there's one topic Karoline rarely addresses: money. Specifically, the $325,000 debt left behind by her 2022 congressional campaign. That number didn't come from rumors. It came from public records.
Elon went back to his companies, and as a businessman, he has a right to speak for his companies. But as president, President Trump has a responsibility to fight for this country. And the One Big Beautiful Bill is the most historic piece of legislation that has moved through Capitol Hill in modern day history. Not only does this bill provide the largest tax cut for middle class and working class families, it extends the Trump tax cuts in 2017.
And what's worse, $200,000 of that was flagged for breaking campaign finance laws. That's not pocket change. That's a serious legal issue. And yet here she is, still standing at the podium, delivering messages on behalf of the president. No charges, no official accountability, just silence. And that's what frustrates everyday Americans the most. Because if the average person got caught mishandling 6 figures of campaign cash, they'd be hit with investigations, fines, maybe even jail time. But when it comes to people like Karoline, the rules seem different, or worse, optional. The fashion statement of power. And even while those questions hang in the air, Karoline continues to build her image one luxury outfit at a time. Her first day at the White House podium, she walked out in a $500 LPA blazer, $730 Jimmy Choo heels, a $6,000 Dior Lady Delight handbag, and a Louis Vuitton Neverfull tote that costs over $2,000. That's nearly $10,000 in one public appearance. To her fans, it was confidence, power dressing, proof that women can lead and look good doing it. To her critics, it was proof of the growing disconnect between political elites and everyday citizens. Because when most Americans are struggling with grocery bills, rent, and student loans, watching a White House official flaunt luxury fashion just adds salt to the wound. And Karoline doesn't hide it. She wears each piece like a message. This is who I am. This is how I lead. And if you don't like it, look somewhere else. But that attitude only fuels the divide. Because every Dior bag she carries raises the same question. Who's really paying for all of this? A new face of conservative power. Still, Karoline Leavitt isn't slowing down. Whether you admire her or not, she's making it clear she's not going anywhere. And she's not just changing how conservatives communicate. She's reshaping what power looks like in this generation. The rules, she rewrites them. The image, she controls it. The criticism, she uses it. And maybe that's the bigger story. Karoline isn't trying to fit into a mold. She's building her own. One that blends power and femininity, tradition and disruption.
President choose
What's
to show
not
that
true, Yamiche?
it's not true. The video was showing a burial site. It is unsubstantiated that that's the case.
No, it is true that that video showed the crosses that represent
what the president claimed.
the video showed images of crosses in South Africa about white farmers who have been killed and politically persecuted because of the color of their skin.
She's not a throwback to old conservatism. She's the next chapter. But with that comes risk. Because the same boldness that propels her to power could also be what brings it crashing down. Who is Karoline Leavitt, really? Is she the small-town girl who broke into elite politics with grit and confidence? Or is she the curated product of wealth, media deals, and political alliances? Is she truly standing up for conservative values or building a brand that profits from controversy? Maybe she's both. And maybe that's exactly why she's still here, because in today's politics, identity is everything. Karoline's story isn't just about success. It's about the tension pulsing through the country, the feeling that politics no longer reflects the people, the frustration of watching power go unchecked. The quiet question so many Americans keep asking is anyone in Washington really like us anymore? But whether you love her, question her, or can't stop watching her, Karoline Leavitt has made one thing certain. She's not just a political figure. She's a presence. And she's rewriting what it means to hold power in today's America. So what do you think? Let us know in the comments. Like if you want more deep dives like this, subscribe if you want to stay updated on the real stories behind the headlines, and share this with someone who still thinks politics isn't personal. Because Karoline Leavitt's life, it's more than politics, it's a window into the future of power itself.